Hello and welcome to podcast number 2. I am your host, Matt Belair, and today we are talking to none other than Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. He is the author of The 5 Levels of Attachment and Living a Life of Awareness. He is a leader in the field of spirituality and wellness, and I am so excited to have him on the show. Today, we're going to discuss some of his work, ways we can have more fulfillment, love, and peace in our lives, and so much more. Thanks so much for being here with us, and welcome to the show, Don Miguel.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an honor, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, the honor is mine. So I think the best way for us to get started is for you to explain a little bit about your upbringing and background, because I think it's really unique, and I find it very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's my background comes from old school Mexico. We're descendants of what we know as Toltec, which is a Nahuatl word that means artist in English. If I translate the phrase, the Toltec art of transformation, into 100% English, it means the artist path of transformation. We are artists, and the canvas for our art is our life. And the instruments we're going to use, that is our will, our intent, the energy that animates this body. So my family tradition is basically what we know as an oral tradition. You can say, as a culture, the Toltec existed over 500 years ago, starting from Teotihuacan up until the conquest by the Mexica, the Aztecs, or the Spanish. And then it became an oral tradition, and that what happens when a culture loses its center, it becomes more of a philosophy or tradition, because it continues through the lessons of ancestors or people, or basically either an individual in the family or a small little town that continues the tradition, and they all teach it in their own unique way. Example, Don Juan Mateos of Carlos Castaneda. He's as a Yaqui Indian from Sonora, from the Sonoran Desert. There's also families around Mexico that teach it exactly as is. And then you have my family, that we come from a small town called Juanacatlan, Jalisco, just outside of Guadalajara. And my great-great-grandfather, Don Ezequiel Macias, he used to teach us the philosophy in his own unique way. He told it through stories, through basically what he remembers and his life experiences to his apprentices, who were very few people. Then his son, Don Leonardo, taught it in his own unique way. Don Ezequiel lived to be 116, Don Leonardo 98, and then his daughter, my grandmother, Madre Sarita, taught it in her own unique way. She decided to share it with the community. Before that, Don Ezequiel and Don Leonardo taught it to select few people, but then my grandma Sarita taught it in a way that she opened a small little temple in San Diego, California, began to practice faith healing, and she also gave cátedras. And in those cátedras, she taught the whole community, to the point where the county of San Diego enshrined her in the San Diego Women's Hall of Fame. You can say that she began to open this gate that allowed her to share it. And then her son, Don Miguel Ruiz, my father, really spread that message wide across the world with his book, The Four Agreements, Mastery of Love, Voice of Knowledge. And that's where I come from. So it's a lineage of generation that shares it through stories, through our experiences. But at the core, there's always that truth, which is, I am this life that animates this body. I am animating this mind. I am that energy. I'm that spirit. I'm that intent. And who I am, what I am, has no symbol. So we just use words to try to describe it. And for me, that's been what I've come to understand about the tradition, that the whole point of it is to enjoy life, to enjoy this experience. Today is the youngest I will ever be. Yesterday doesn't exist. Tomorrow won't exist yet is the consequence of the actions I take now, which means it's the only moment that is real, the only moment where I'm able to express my art is in this present moment. Right now I'm alive, and that's who I am. So that's what our family teaches in their own unique way.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful stuff. That's amazing. Now, obviously, it's going to be difficult to do, and you probably can't. But can you embody some of the core messages of that upbringing, or maybe some of the practices, something that you were doing as a kid that maybe would be a little bit strange for Western society and helped you grow?
Well, I don't know. I guess the strange part would be this. I grew up in dualities. My father is a neurosurgeon, was a neurosurgeon. My uncle was a neurosurgeon. My other uncle was an oncologist. My mother is a dentist. The generation that my parents were doctors, and my grandmother was a faith healer and spiritual. So I grew up with that duality of, you can say, non-traditional and traditional medicine, or Western, or whatever, homeopathic, whatever you want to call it, and they're both real. I grew up with spiritualism all of my life around my family, but at the same time, we're all academics. I studied international baccalaureate. In the international baccalaureate, I had a 5-year scholarship to University of California, San Diego, graduated in the dean's list, and at the same time, we talk about spirituality. So you can say that I'm a true border town boy, because I grew up in San Diego and went to school in Tijuana. So I basically grew up with two cultures. So you can say that's the strange part of my upbringing, is that I get to witness the manifestation or the creation of our society in two different ways, in two different languages, that of science and that of spiritualism, or spirit, you can call it. And they're both our creation. They're both just a language that we use to understand what we're experiencing. So when I was a kid, I would listen to my grandmother's conferences, her presentations, her cátedras, as she would call them. I witnessed my father's apprenticeship. And at the same time, I was very much an academic. That's how my father raised at least me and my cousins. And to be this academic, because we had the opportunity. You can say that if you look back on the previous generations of us didn't have that opportunity. So when we got the opportunity, we already had the mind, so we grab it. So you can say that is what allows me to see the world in a totally different, unique way. I can see the arguments from both sides, and not just both sides, maybe a third, a fourth, a fifth. Basically, it's like a math equation. And we talked about my kids before they started the interview, and I'll share it this way. My little girl right now is in 3rd grade, and she's learning about multiplications. I guess what's the word? Arithmetic. She's learning how to do her math equations, and she's asked me. At the end of each one of her homeworks, she gets like a bonus. Like, it won't go towards her credit. We won't go against it, but if she gets it right, it will add to her credit. So it's a bonus. So she always tries to get them. And this one, she figured out that it was her very first math problem that didn't have an equation on it, but she had to figure out the equation. So she figured out how it's supposed to be. And I understood it as algebra. She's in arithmetic, but I understood it as algebra. She's trying to, the question is asking for X. And okay, I'm trying to create steer here in a way so she can create an algebra equation. But then she does her basic arithmetic equation. And I said, no, honey, try it this way. They're asking for this. But Daddy, no, try it this way. So I am doing the algebra. She's doing the arithmetic, which is basically plus, minus. Basically, it was a plus. We have the big number, the smaller number, and we're trying to figure out what the other small number is, because we have the result. basically. So she's trying to figure out that missing number. And I'm using my complicated algebra understanding of it. And then she says, "No, Daddy," she rebuked me. And she said, "No, we do it this way." So I thought, fine, let's see it your way. And she succeeded. She found the missing equation, the missing number, by changing the line of plus minus equals this. And it reminded me something I'd forgotten about math, that there's not just one way, there are many, many ways. And it's true about everything. It's one of those things that reminder, because it's so easy to get attached to this thing that worked. It's so tempting because we like to know what we're doing. We want to know exactly what we're doing in order to take an action. And all of a sudden, here is someone who taught you that there's a different way. There's a different way to approach it, and both are right. Both are that it. And that's exactly what I grew up with my father and my grandmother teaching me that. And now my kids are now teaching it to me, reminded me, but it's there. So that is something I grew up with. And to be able to see every single angle, to understand that there's not just one way. You can look at all the traditions in the world and they all lead to one answer, to one point. And when we get so attached to it, well, that's where all the conflict that we're seeing right now exists. If we're willing to listen to one another, we will find that we're all speaking the same language, even when the alphabet and the sounds are constructed in a different way. We're speaking the same thing.
Yeah, you said so many great things in there. You talked about a lot, universal truths, right? Once you can distill it, there's more than one way to find the truth, right? Mm-hmm. And in allowing someone else to find their way, like letting them go and knowing that you can take wisdom from that. And also you are free to discover it in your own way, just like your daughter did, which is amazing. Yeah. And the other thing I was going to leave for later, but I'm going to touch on now, was I recently went to Dr. Joe Dispenza's intensive 3-day workshop where I had to do an 8-hour online course just to go. And me, I'm not academically gifted. I kind of cruise around. I'm more, spiritually based, as it's nice to see you be able to do both. And Dr. Joe is the same, where I kind of see him as a yogi that came out of a cave, but can explain it to you through science and what's going on in the mind. And it's such an easy way that you can follow and understand. But it brings you to the truth, right? And the truth is looking within. You can find it that way. Yeah. And I think that science and spirituality are now coming together and they're teaming up. And what the message is really is that we are infinite, that we are the creators of our reality. And there are universal truths. And the easiest way normally is to look within to find them. You're not going to go and, you do this and this and this and you find the way. It's looking in and finding your own answers and looking for masters such as yourself or the wisdom, but trusting that deep intuition within you. And you talked about faith healing with your grandmother, and he talks about that in You Are the Placebo, and he's curing people of cancer. Well, not him. He's giving people the tools to cure themselves, time and time and time again. So we're seeing miraculous things through his work, and, people like your family who are really connected to spirit, and it's a very real thing. And now I think it's so exciting because he and others are going to be able to prove it scientifically, what's happening, how this is happening. And I even share a simple example for me is Bruce Lee broke his back in his early 20s, and they told him he was never going to kick again, and he should just kind of accept that. And when he was in the hospital bed, he read everything that he could on martial arts, boxing, everything that he could get his hands on. And he also visualized himself healing. He said, no, this isn't what's going to happen. I'm going to do this. And if you talk to him after, he's like, that time was the most profound time in my life because I learned more about martial arts in the hospital bed and about myself. But if he would have given up at that time and, when it happened, and everybody has a catalyst in their life where something happens, right? If he were to have just given up and said, my back is out, I'm done martial arts. This is it. He would have never gone on to be the best, greatest martial artist of all time and had the influence that he had. So we have this perspective and we have this choice, and this choice to be infinite. And even if we make that choice and fail, isn't it better to have that? Because if you don't make the choice, and if you don't shoot or choose that perspective, then you have no choice. You have no chance to begin with.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. It's always that intent. You know, my father suffered a massive heart attack in 2002, left him with 15% heart capacity, and the doctors told him exactly the same thing. But my father's like, I don't want to live my life in the couch. I don't want to live like that. I want to go out and live. So he climbed the pyramid of the sun. He did it very, very slowly, but he did it. Intent is what drives this body. Intent is what drives this mind. The same energy we use to move my arm, to move my legs, the same energy I use to create a thought, to create an idea. And my ideas, I can think of all these infinite possibilities. And if I like one of them, I can manifest it by saying yes to it and using this body, using this energy to manifest it. You know, Bruce Lee is a beautiful, wonderful teacher of that, you know, especially in those moments where most of us would surrender. And not just, no, I'm using the wrong one. I'm saying the word giving in.
Mm-hmm.
Surrender is something different. Giving in is basically letting go of intent, no longer applying intent. Not because life said no to us, it's because we've said no to ourselves. Surrendering is actually life says no to us, and we respect life, and we surrender by no longer resisting the fight, and all of a sudden opening up all these possibilities. There's a difference in the sense that if I say no to myself, if I let go of that intent, it's not because life said yes or no to me. It's because I said no, yes or no to myself. I didn't give life a chance to answer back. And that is important, because life has all the right to say no to us. Every individual has the right to say no to us. But there's a difference when we say no to ourselves because we're afraid of a response. We're afraid of what life would say. We're afraid of what our friends would say. More importantly, what we say about ourselves, the judgment that comes with it. So we become paralyzed and we don't create a single thing. So in that essence, that's when we limit our intent. We limit our capacity. We limit our potential, because it's being shaped by this I can't in my mind, this belief. And one of the things I love about running especially when I first started, is that the mind creates all these thresholds that it says you can't cross. And it feels wonderful when you cross them. All of a sudden you realize that my mind was lying to me, that I am able to create more, that I'm able to manifest more. Look at what my potential is, and it's much more than my belief told me I could.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that one. I trained with Shaolin Monks in China,
Nice.
and their whole thing was pushing you past what you can do. And one of the masters there could break, granite this thick with 2 fingers.
Wow.
And so I interviewed him. He could also break one, let's say the camera about say that thick. I have it on video too, so I can post that over his head.
Wow.
So I interviewed him and I said, how is this possible? This is impossible to most of the world. And he just told me years of Qigong, mastering the energy of the body, and then also hard Qigong, which conditioning the fingers. And that's what I realized, that doing the supernatural couldn't be any more ordinary with enough dedication, belief, and practice. So it is a marriage of the 2 worlds. And that's, what you're talking about there. I wanted to kind of go into your first book, which is the 5 levels of attachment. And I feel that when you're talking about what you're talking about, it's removing the layers of the ego to really get to the essence of what you are. Surrendering. You have this idea of you and this ego, which is just personality, saying this is what my limit is, but really we're infinite. And if we can surrender to that truth and we can give in and let go, that's when we can allow infinity to come in. And I feel like that's the thing that we need to connect to, less of who we think we are and more of a surrender to what is and what possibility we want to create within ourselves. So I guess the question would be, can you distill the wisdom in that first book, or even in the second book, or both, for the viewers, and what are those levels, and how can we break away at the ego and the self to get to that space?
Sure, but before I do that, there's something you said that I need to explain. And you said the word should, and then the word ego. The function of ego is to keep the illusion alive. We create an image of ourselves that if we live up to it, we're worthy of love. If we don't live up to it, we fall short. And we reject ourselves, we punish ourselves. So you can say, if we fall short of that, we will punish ourselves and reject ourselves, which means that in order to be worthy of love, then we have to be perfect. And something that is perfect is something that is completely free of any flaw. And we create this illusion. So the function of ego is to keep this illusion alive. And then you can say, we call it self. So the reason why I say this is because the problem that the 4 agreements, mastery of love, voice of knowledge, the 5 levels of attachment, living a life of awareness, they all tackle the problem of domestication, which is a system of reward and punishment by which we model the behavior of an individual. Like I said before, if I live up to the expectation, for example, of Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., I don't take things personally, I don't make assumptions, I always do my best. I forgot the 4th agreement, oh no, how can I call myself Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. if I don't know the 4 agreement? And I begin that downward spiral of self-judgment that is domestication. That's basically, I'm punishing myself for not living up to this image of Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. that has to be perfect. And in order to be perfect, you have to live the 4 agreements. The 5th agreement, oh no, be skeptical but learn to listen, oh no. You can see the diatribe of self-judgment that happens. And the word should, how it is using it to say, to put ourselves in that image. This is the way we can corrupt the 4 agreements and turn it into the 4 conditions of our personal freedom. That's how we can distort or corrupt spirituality. I have to be this master in order to love myself. Until then, I am not worthy of my love. And that's the illusion. That's the function of ego. And the word should is something that keeps us away from where we're at right now. You can see who I am right now is like is accepting the truth of who I am. For example, like a drug dealer, like a drug addict or alcoholic that says, hello, my name is so-and-so, and I'm an alcoholic or I'm a drug dealer. Hi, my name is Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., and I do take things personally. I do make assumptions. Sometimes I don't do my best. Sometimes I'm not impeccable with my word. Sometimes I'm not skeptical at all. I buy a hook, line, and sinker. I accept who I am. And the truth is, at this point, those things happen. That is the breaking point. It's an aha moment, a moment of clarity. The way a drug addict or an alcoholic breaks that is the moment we become aware of the truth and be willing to see the truth. And in that moment of clarity, if we choose to take action, then that moment of clarity is a pivotal point in our life. But if we choose not to take action, then it's just a thought that passes in the wind. So the key there is to become aware of what we've created, what we were doing. So the 5 levels of attachment basically is an attachment to knowledge, an attachment to an idea, to a belief, especially that of domestication. We're at level 5, it's called fanaticism. I can't see beyond the tips of my nose because every belief I have distorts my perception because I have to live up to this image. An idea at level 5 fanaticism is more important than my own life. And if it's more important than my own life, then I'm willing to kill or die for it because an idea is more important than anyone else's life. And that's what happens with fanaticism, that the idea, that knowledge is more important than life. and we have to live up to it, such as at level 4, which is internalization, which is where we begin to domesticate ourselves. We internalize this belief, this idea, and I domesticate myself with it. Where the reward of living up to the expectation is conditional love, conditional because if I don't live up to it, then I'm worthy of that punishment. Well, at the fanaticism, the same system applies. The only difference is that the reward is still the same, which is conditional love, but the punishment is hate, anger, prejudice. The opposite of love is not hate or anger. Those things are just the instruments we use to implement the real opposite of love, which is love. The opposite of love is love. Or to put it more simply, the opposite of unconditional love is conditional love. And at level 5 and level 4, that's what we have. We domesticate ourselves to live up to an image that doesn't exist. There goes ego. We live up to this image that doesn't exist, and we try to judge ourselves to be acceptable in that way, and we do it with everyone around us. We domesticate people. We judge people for what they post, how they celebrate life, how they celebrate death, how they should vote, how they should dress. We continuously judge them, domesticating one another to live up to this belief. And that's where we can say the conflict happens, because we're domesticating each other continuously until we have this victory of imposing and subjugation, where I impose my will unto you and you subjugate your own will. At that point, in order for us to happen, this subjugation imposing happens in our own mind, in our own ability. So that moment of clarity is when we become aware of this. We become aware that we're doing this in our life. And we have a choice. If to go from level 5 to level 4, it's just allowing, we can use the 5th agreement if we want, be skeptical. Now, be skeptical simply means to withhold my yes and to withhold my no, and to listen. That's what being skeptical is. I'm not going to say yes automatically or no automatically. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to withhold these two actions until I'm able to perceive. This allows us to question, to bring scrutiny to these beliefs, to these ideas, to what are surrounding us, so we can see what the truth is. And then we see it, that truth, and that in our life, we've been domesticating ourselves, rejecting ourselves on someone else's point of view or whatever, however we learn from it. Then we begin the process of cleaning it, to heal from it, which is to forgive. Forgive me, grandmother, for using you to domesticate me for all those years. I forgive you for domesticating me. I totally understand. I've got 2 kids of my own. But I've been using your own words for 30 years to domesticate me. I no longer believe it. And I'll forgive myself. The key to forgiveness is to become aware. The gift of it is that we become aware that I said yes to all those conditions that subjugated me. That I let a belief control my yes and my no, my will, my intent. And then we go to level 3, which is identity. And identity, attachment to identity is basically that me and knowledge are one. I attach myself so much to this idea that I domesticate myself. Well, actually, sorry, that I now see myself as a living symbol. I'm doing this backwards, so I'm confusing myself a little bit. When I attach myself to my identity, is that now I see myself as knowledge. Then we go to level 2, which is preference, and level 1, the authentic self. The reason why I'm saying this like that is because the level 1, the authentic self, is this living being that gives life to me, this body, to this mind. I'm the infinite possibility. I'm alive. The difference between me and my corpse when I die is that when I die, this body that you're see that's talking to you will be as inanimate as this table that this computer is sitting on. But the difference between that corpse and me is that I'm alive right now to move it. I'm alive to dance, to move, to go in any direction. And that infinite possibility that I am, you can see it clearly when you hold a baby in your arms. When you hold a baby in your arms, You're seeing that infinite possibility of a child that has a whole life ahead of them. They could be a doctor, they could be a lawyer, because they have that whole life ahead of them. Well, the difference between that baby and me, that baby that my parents held when I was just born almost 40 years ago, is that I know how to use this body and I know how to use this mind. But I'm still that infinite possibility. Today is the youngest I will ever be. And I know I'm alive. So preference level 2 is whatever direction I want to go in. And whatever direction I want to go, I can think of all these possibilities. And if I like one of them, I will manifest it. I will use this body, I will use this mind to manifest it. But at level 3 identity, I attach myself to my beliefs. I can call myself, I am spiritual. I am Toltec. I am all those things. But what I'm doing to myself is I'm no longer seeing myself as the experience of me. You see, my grandmother asked me a question during my apprenticeship with her, which is, do you control knowledge or does knowledge control you? The answer at level 1 to her question is, I am a living being regardless of my knowledge. I am a living being regardless of what I know. To know me is to simply experience me. That's it. I don't need words. At level 2, the answer is, I know I'm the authentic self. I'm this energy that has the infinite potential. So I choose where to go. I can attach and detach. You see, there's nothing wrong with attachment so long as you learn to detach. When it becomes corrupted is when it becomes more difficult to detach. So level 3, identity, I become attached to knowledge. Now my answer to who I am is a definition, a symbol that allows me to understand who I am. I am the mind. You can call it, you can put it this way. I identify myself not as this living being, but I identify myself as this mind, this brain, this image, this symbol. And knowledge and I are one. Mind you, I can have that without domesticating myself. It's just knowledge. Now, mind you, knowledge, the function of knowledge is to allows us to understand the world, allows us to understand how the universe moves, but more importantly, it allows me to understand you. It is this bridge that allows you and I to interact. Si empiezo a hablar contigo en español, posiblemente no me entiendes. If I start speaking to you in Spanish, you may not understand me. So I look for a language that allows you and I to understand one another, to share our experience of life through one another. And that's the beauty of knowledge. So knowledge is a mirror. Knowledge reflects life as is and puts it into a language that we can understand. So I can say, I have a book in my hand. Even though I'm not holding a book, I can say, imagine I have a book. You can see it because we understand what the word is. We say the word book, we understand. We can say the word love. Now that gets a little more complicated because our definition of what love means may be a little different. And that's where the attachment to identity comes in, because we're attached to that symbol that allows us to understand ourselves through our preferences in life. You know, that preference in life is basically that infinite possibility. And I say, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to run for a marathon. I'm going to train for a marathon. And since I'm training for a marathon, I can call myself a marathoner because I've already run one marathon and I'm about to run the second one. But with that first one, I can officially call myself a marathoner. I am a marathoner. And that becomes my identity. And it begins to color my choices. And I start seeing myself as a marathoner. But if I can't attach to it, you see, at level 3, level 2, level 1, whether you're a marathoner or not, you're a snowboarder. Hey, we can relate. We enjoy the physical activity of going and doing something. I like to run. You like to snowboard. Let's talk about it. Let's interact. Oh, I can see how you experience life, and we can get to interact. But at level 4, when I get back into that internalization, when I start domesticating myself, I have to be a good marathoner. And I can understand you doing snowboard, but you'd be better off if you're a marathoner too. And I start domesticating you to try to be this line. Whether it's you or not, it's what I do, and that's the domestication. At level 5, I wouldn't be talking to you. I only hang out with marathoners. Why would I talk to you? You have nothing to bring my life. That's the thing that happens as we get more attached. Our perception closes to this very narrow gap that I can only see you if you live up to my expectation. And that's what happens. Little by little, as we get attached, at level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. So basically, it's that awareness. So the levels of attachment are simply this instrument that allows us to become aware of where we're at. It allows us the opportunity to have an aha moment. This is how attached I am. Now, do I want to stay here or not? If I want to stay here, fine, no problem. If I want to let go of now it becomes a transformational moment. I want to shift my direction in life. And that's where you can say a lot of people do this work. A lot of people through spirituality, some people through science, some people through sports, some people through love, some people through academia. We all find our way. And the moment we let go of the I should, what should be, is what allows us to see what is in front of us. This is the clay I get to work with. What can I do with it? What can I manifest with it? What can I create with it? And when we accept what is, that allows us to have that ground base by which where we can start to work. Because up until that point, the thing about domestication is that it doesn't allow us to see life as is. We only see what we want to see. It distorts our perception. So you can say the answer to my grandmother's question, once again at level 4, is that knowledge gives me the rules by which I live my life, and also the rules by which I love myself. And at level 5, knowledge has complete and total control of me. So that is the point of the 4 agreement, the 5 levels of attachment. Sorry, I got confused there a little bit. It's an instrument to become aware of where we're at, and we can use the 4 agreements. We can use the 5th agreement to use that to let go, to go down the levels, to detach little by little to the point where I see myself as an experience, where I experience myself. And that's what life is. This is me. In what direction do I want to go?
Wow. Well, you said so much there. As you went along, I had question and deepening of understanding, and then question, and then thought it was very profound. So thank you for all of that. What question do I ask? Well, we were talking a little bit about enlightenment before. So I guess I would ask you, what is enlightenment to you? And I was just going to say as well, when you talked about preference, for me as a creator, I feel that, yes, we have preference. It's a balance between preference and surrender, where I would prefer a certain reality, a certain thing that I know that within me I can create, but I don't attach to that for my self-worth and self-love. If I want to be an author or the best snowboarder in the world or whatever the case may be, I need to be fulfilled and whole now without that, and enjoy the experience of creating that, knowing that I can. And if the universe wants to give me something else, show that the equal amount of love and experience and wisdom, knowing that I am complete and that no outer circumstance or reality or thing that I put in my own mind is going to give that to me. I already have it. Yeah. So with that being said, I would say, what's your definition of enlightenment and how people can achieve that? Because you said something interesting before this call, and I think it's important for people to hear.
Well, yeah, the thing I said before the interview was the easiest part of enlightenment is reaching enlightenment. The hardest part of enlightenment is staying enlightened. And what I mean by that is we work to open our perception. We work to let go of these blinders. We let go of the attachments that blinds us, we open it up. So enlightenment is simply that moment where we see all creation as is. We see life as is without this filter that we have, and we see life without those symbols. Without it, we have the experience of life, not only within us but around us, and then you see it as a communion, we can call it. And that's the word in Catholicism, the communion within ourselves and with everything around us. It's the same words, same way to reach. The reason why it's difficult to stay in that is that we don't live in an ashram, we don't live in a monastery, we don't live isolated in the hills. We live in this everyday world, and it's chaotic. It's beautiful. It's perfect, because that's the way it exists at this moment. And it can change, and it can change with our co-creation, how we want to manifest our will. But we are constantly interacting with people who are domesticated. We're constantly interacting with people who are attached, and we're interacting with people who are aware. But the only one that matters is our own. It's a form of discipline, a discipline that allows us to always be aware that I'm the point of start. For example, the way you were describing, or you were leading up to this question, that it's not about reaching this goal, it's about where I'm at. For me, it's the same thing. When I run marathons, I don't train to reach a goal line. I reach to be able to enjoy the craft that I'm doing. I enjoy the run. I enjoy the experience of it. I enjoy the moment before the race starts, the moment the race begins, the first few miles, and listening to my body. And when I cross the finish line, I'll enjoy that too. I enjoy the whole process. I enjoy the 6 months. I enjoy practicing my craft. I enjoy talking. I enjoy sharing my tradition. I've gotten so much better than when I first started over 10 years ago, teaching in that way. And it's been a phenomenal experience. It's been an experience that leaves me to a point where I enjoy everything I do. And that's the motivator. I don't do things so I can reach my self-worth or be worthy of love. I do things because I love myself, and that's called passion. When you enjoy what you love to do, success is just a natural consequence, because we're doing what we love to do. And it's not about reaching point A or point B or how high I can get it. It's the opportunity to even get it. It's the opportunity to even practice. How wonderful is that? So for me, nirvana or enlightenment, we all have our own ways. It'll look different to a Shaolin monk than a priest or a Nawal or a Tibetan monk or anyone. It's going to be different because we all understand it differently. But once we get there, there's just no words. But that's the thing. That's always been the illusion. As soon as I get there, that's always been the illusion. We always believe it's outside of us. It's basically that moment where we realize there's nothing to look for. It's always been here. It's been here the whole time. I just wasn't paying attention.
Absolutely. Yeah, very, very well put. Love it. Agree with all of that. What would you say for somebody that maybe feels, that they don't really have control of their lives? Maybe they're just beginning on this path and they are a bit of a victim to all of these attachments into the mind. So as a thought comes, they attach to that, and they're in worry, and they're in fear, and they're in doubt, and maybe they don't have a community yet. Where they know something inside. They know that they have this ability inside, but they don't have the resources yet, or the community. Do you have any tools or recommendations for a person?
You don't need a community. All you need is yourself. All you need to do is realize this is what I want to do. There's a difference between saying I want to and I have to. If you say to yourself, I have to, then you're already domesticating yourself. You're already reprogramming. You've turned the 4 agreements into the 4 conditions, or whatever tradition you're using. It's the grass is greener somewhere else. And that's going to be true to you for as long as you believe it, whether with a community or not, because the family's been teaching it with or without a community. With that said, it always comes down to choice. A drug addict or an alcoholic can recover in the middle of a party. I know someone who let go of both, and they continue to live in Las Vegas for 7 years and sober the whole time. And they go out to parties, they pour drinks to someone else, but they will never touch it themselves because they were honest with themselves and they said, this is what I don't want. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. And when you answer those questions like that, of course you'll never be tempted because that's not what you want. And that's the key, because I have to. The word I have to is trying to convince yourself to be something you're not. So it always comes down to that thing. This is who I am. What do I want from life? And from that, the answers that come, well, then you manifest those things. The how and when. Well, that's the beautiful thing. There is no frame to follow. You will create it. If you want to create a community, create it. You don't have to. If you want to, go ahead. If you want to let go of the beliefs that says you're not worthy of love, go ahead. If you want to keep them, go ahead. And that's the key. What do you want to create? What do you want to enjoy? Today is the youngest day of your life, and you have your whole life in front of you. What do you want it to look like? And that answer will change with every moment. Just like what you want to eat for today will change from one day to another. Today I want sushi, tomorrow I want pizza. The next day I want some pho. The next day I just want a tuna fish sandwich. My desires, my intent changes with me, because with every new experience of life, I change.
Absolutely. Yeah. More amazing stuff. I definitely agree with all that. Because for me, these are questions I've been asking myself from a young age. And even when I will ask myself these questions, they can change within an hour. They can change within a day. And the more you ask, the more clarity that you have. And then you get around that. And the more you can find your alignment. And it's really important just to continue to ask. And I agree with everything that you said, that, if you are seeking, it's just asking in earnest, and you will find it. And it is that decision. It's yours to seek, and it's yours to not. There's no wrong. You're going to do it. Yeah. And if you want to create something, you can. Now, in a more, I'll get a lot of questions from people when I talk about this stuff about tragedy. So Paris was awful, and it's something that we deal with as a global scale. So they'll say, what if something like this happens, or how do you deal with it? We should go and bomb them now and things like that. And I definitely have a different view on that. And I did a little writing, and I'm sure that you do as well. And from my perspective as a martial artist, when I'm teaching people, sometimes they'll say, oh, you must really kick butt in the street if somebody tries to fight you. It's like, when's the last time you got in a street fight? And I say, I have never been in one. Maybe, when I was a kid. But when I had that power within me, I know that the guy attacking me, there's something wrong with that person. And if I can show them love and compassion, then it's going to give him an opportunity to transform. Because if I act out of anger, then I'm holding that. That's what I'm holding within me. And it's not going to make me feel good. And if it is something that's more serious, it's more of a challenge for me to make a choice in love and compassion. And I'm just curious on your thoughts of what kind of wisdom you could share with people who may be dealing directly with a loss like that, right? It's directly affecting them. And when it's their challenge, it's, it's a little bit more tougher pill to swallow from, the farther you are removed. And I'm sure that your thoughts are somewhere along the lines of mine, but I'm just wondering what kind of wisdom that you would have for what can we be doing as an individual, communities, and countries to deal with something like this, and then really, create world peace, for real.
Well, world peace starts with me. I will always be true. And like your answers, it speaks of it. And then in those disciplines, and any of those disciplines, violence is the last resort because at least that point where there's no choice. But you always use the energy. You never own the energy, and the reason why it's the last resort is because you have a bigger instrument before that, which is your mind. The mind is an instrument that we can use. Now, I'm blessed to say that I am not in the middle of that reaction right now, though I have the compassion, and I feel for everyone, not just the victims of Paris, but throughout the world. Every day there's tragedy in a global scale and a personal scale, and everyone will react differently. No one can really predict how they're going to answer, but what I can do is I can still have the choice of how I'm going to use my words. If they've chosen to use the words of fear and anger, well, let them be that voice of fear and anger. Let them suffer the consequences for their actions. I choose to have my voice be different. I choose to construct. I choose to be the people who's going to go and help someone's in need. That is a choice. And all of us, we're 7 billion people, and everyone's going to react in a totally different way. There's no such thing as we should, like I said before. There's only the consequence that we have at that very moment. Thus, at the moment, that's what I'm saying right now. It's easy for me to say all these things because I'm not in the middle of it. Though I've experienced injustice in my life as well, being a border town boy in Tijuana and San Diego, we don't have our shortages of that. But it's always been knowing that compassion is always the key. Being able to see it from different angles, it also allows us to understand one another. And I realized that in that moment, and in all those moments, I have a choice. I can choose to be the voice of my anger, my prejudice, or I can choose to be the voice of my love and my compassion. And that is the choice I'm going to make when the moment comes, or the moment that is here. The beautiful thing about tragedies is that it shows the dark side of humanity, but at the same time it shows the beautiful sides of humanity. Those who run to help someone, those who get together to support, those who go out and forgive, but there's still a consequence to their actions. The answers will always change. The reaction will always change. It's unpredictable. It's human nature. Our emotions are real, but how we want to express those emotions, that is up to us. I could be angered by everything that's been posted. I can be angered by this person saying that or that person saying that. But in the end, there's always been a truth constantly. I only control to the tips of my own fingers. I do not control to the tips of yours nor anyone else's. I only control this. I can't control the world, but I control my own will. And I choose how I want to manifest it. Do I choose to be a co-creator with love? And with that, there's a difference between co-creator with conditional love or unconditional love. But the choice is always up to me. And I'm responsible for my choices. So you can say that's the key thing, to take full responsibility for our own choices. If someone else's choices, let them be that choice. They're responsible for that. If they want to be the voice of anger or patriotism or whatnot, the voice of war, then that's their choice and they will get the consequences of those actions. I control my own will. And I respect my own will. And respecting my own will allows me to respect the will of others. There's consequences to every action there is. The consequences to the actions of the people who did all these things in the last few weeks, there's going to be a consequence. fortunately or unfortunately. It depends on the point of view of the individual. But war starts here, just as much as peace starts here. Which one am I going to be a co-creator of? And that's the choice we all have.
Beautiful. I 100% agree with all of that. That's very, very well put. I agree with all that. I've been saying things along those lines pretty well. When I speak to people, and one of the things that's really becoming common to me now is it's, because of this, I can't act this way. And because of this, and every time it's some sort of external reality, some sort of circumstance that's not them, that causes them to act. And what you're saying, and what I totally agree with it, is it's only ever my choice, that my free will, that I honor that if the entire world goes to crap and it's on my doorstep and it's right there, then I get the choice. And in the meantime, my creation is going to create peace and harmony in my surroundings. And if it comes and I have to deal with that, I'm going to choose love and compassion, because that's my choice. And that's what I know in me is how I want to respond to that. I don't want to go in a way that is war, because like you said, then I am war, right? And I don't want that. That's not who I am. And I think that deep down, when you can see everybody, they are unconditional love. That's who they are, and they're providing catalysts. So don't worry about anyone else. Take responsibility for yourself.
And that's the point where we can help. If we can't help that, we have nothing. We can only give what we have. If we have to be rescued, then we can't rescue anyone.
Yes. I have an expression that I like to tell people. I've been to Burning Man 2 years in a row, so shout out to all the Burning Man folk. What people don't understand about Burning Man is there's 10 tenets to go, and it's radical self-expression, inclusion, gifting, and it basically just a good community. And there's a lot of conscious workshops. You could go and do yoga 24 hours a day. You could, they have these huge camps set up, and you have speakers like you, and meditation workshops and yogis, and you can go do all of that. And it's such a beautiful, high vibration environment of genuine love. You're hugging people for a minute and you don't even know them. And it's real and genuine and beautiful. And one of the interesting things, it's in the middle of the desert. And you can find everywhere is gifting something. So you can find booze and beer pretty easy. But water is tough to come by, because you have to bring everything in and everything out. And water is very heavy. So an analogy I like to tell people is, like, if you're at Burning Man and somebody really needs water, they've been out in 3 days having fun, looking at the art, meeting people, and they really need water, and they say, Matt, I need some water. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have any water to give you. Like, you really need some badly, and it's the source of life. And that's kind of how I feel about self-love. If you don't fill yourself up with self-love, self-care, self-understanding, then you cannot offer that love to somebody else who needs it. You can only offer that. So I feel it's the most fundamental thing. And that's what I'm going to try to keep, filling myself up with. And it's in no way some sort of egoist thing. It's forgiveness for my imperfections, because we all are imperfect. And it's kindness towards ourselves, so then we can impart that and show kindness to others, knowing that, don't attach to this idea, like you said earlier, that, Matt Belair is worthy if I can do a triple backflip on my snowboard and sell books and whatever. I call it my dum-dum brain, whatever my analytical mind is striving to do. But if I can, say, okay, I can do what I can, and I'm going to do it in love and harmony within. And every single reaction to the people that I interact with, you can change somebody's life by a little bit of kindness, getting a donut or a coffee. They could be having a really bad day, and you just say something. You never know why the universe is putting you in a spot, and then you show that person love and kindness, and it creates this ripple. And you're saying to the universe that I am going to create. This is going to be my ripple effect while I am here. And I am honoring that from my will, that my ripple I take responsibility for, no matter what is happening out there. I don't care what's happening. This will be my ripple. And that is our choice.
Yeah, I love using that image of the ripple a lot because that's exactly what we're doing. I love that image of the ripple. That's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's beautiful. We are starting to get to the end, and I'm so grateful for the time. I just wanted to ask, what can people expect from you? You said you have another book coming out. What do you
Another
reckon?
book coming out in May, and I'll be going on tour again then, and then it'll be fun, So it's a fun little experience.
Are you allowed to share what the book is about, the title, or is that some?
Well, the title's going to be called The Mastery of Self, and it's basically, it's basically after that moment where, all right, I've done all this work, now what? So I interacting with the world, interacting with this engagement, and interacting with a mitote.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm excited to look at it. It reminds me of the Zen quote. The Zen master says, "Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water." Yeah, and I feel it's just, really, the master is continuing embodying the lessons. Being awakened or enlightened is really nothing special. It's the consistent choice of the most powerful, loving perspective. And as you keep doing that, you really do get signs from the universe, to tell you that you're on the right track. But it's never going to stop. You don't get the answer if you kind of, people see enlightenment and you buzz out and, you're something else. It's not anything like that. It's a very human condition, and it's letting go of the unnecessary to find that true love, that real unconditional love within as much as you can. And then interact with the, with being human. And I'm sure the frustrations of being a father and, and being, in the public eye sometimes, and having challenging perspectives. It's just a continuous process and a continuous unfolding of you.
Yeah, that's my real job. I'm a father and a husband. That's my main things. Everything else is moonlighting.
Yeah, totally. Totally. That's amazing. Very well put.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much for your time. How can people get a hold of you?
You can find me on my website, miguelruizjr.com, on Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff, all those necessities now in the world. But mostly miguelruizjr.com. That's where you find me.
Perfect. Well, he's got 2 amazing books out. You should definitely check him out. He is so full of wisdom. If you can get his talks, if you can see him, any of his live events, he's all over the place. And he's continuing to do very good work for the universe and others, and spreading real, genuine wisdom, a true master. So thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to speaking with you again.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Have fun. Enjoy everything you do.
Thank you.
Thanks.